I've always been that kid who would never get his work done on time. I'd be set a 2-week assignment and I'd convince myself and I'd overestimate my ability to how much work I could get done within a day. And I would tell myself, okay, I could just do it last minute, it's fine, I have time. And for 13 days of that 2 weeks, I'd convince myself saying I have enough time or I have the ability to complete it within a day. I knew that wasn't true. The last day would come and I just wouldn't do the work. And it's not like I had any excuse, it's not like I forgot or I just didn't pay attention to what the work was. I knew everything about it. I knew what I had to do, I knew how long it had to be, I knew everything. I knew all the details. I just couldn't be asked to get up and sit down and do the hard work for once. And I'd procrastinate, convince myself I'd do it, and then not even get it done on the last day. Ever since I decided to take that leap and start doing the hard things, start pushing myself through my problems, all my situations, and challenging myself, I become addicted to working. I became addicted to hard work, to challenging myself, to improving. And that's because I started enjoying the benefits and the feel-good part of doing the hard work. Because you do get that. It just takes a bit longer than usual. And this video isn't to say that every time I do hard work I'm going to feel amazing. I'm going to really want to do hard work every time and feel good every time I do hard work. This video isn't to say that because that's unrealistic. But it's realistic to say that I can increase the likelihood, or this video will increase the likelihood of you finding the work fun. By the way bro, if you're new, my name is Vanch. I make 2-3 videos a day, habits, how to get girls, physique, all that. So click on the subscribe and post notifications so you can see more videos like this and I can help you and educate you, alright? Sorry I had to be a YouTuber. Before we go into it, I need you to understand this concept of dopamine, right? I'll explain to you like the basic caveman version of what dopamine is. Basically your feel-good hormone, right? So imagine a baseline. This is your baseline dopamine. When you do a bad task, for example, something that makes you feel good momentarily, this is what happens, right? Spike of dopamine, so you feel good about it, you're happy, and then it'll crash, and it'll go lower than the baseline, which is why bad habits are so bad, but this is why we keep doing them, because we get addicted to that spike. But the thing is, our highs get even lower, and our lows get even lower every time we do a bad habit. With good habits, it's like we spike, and then we'll actually end up maybe slightly higher than our baseline. And the next time we do that, spike and slightly higher. Thing is, these tasks are harder to do and require more effort, which is why we don't want to do them. But over time, you stack these, and then your dopamine baseline's higher, and you're just happier in general, and you don't even have to do anything. I won't lie, there's like thunder and lightning going on outside, so I'm hoping this doesn't like ruin the quality of this video, right? So, I want you to understand this concept of cheap and expensive dopamine. Right. The way I look at it, I'll give like a real life example and then I'll give like my autistic video game braindead example, right? My autistic braindead example is, so most of us have played Minecraft, right? So there's this thing in the game called an enchantment table. Essentially when you put a sword into it or a pickaxe or whatever and you want to enchant it, you use a certain amount of XP to enchant your item. Now say I have a certain amount of XP, say you're set with like a baseline amount of XP. If I put something into the enchantment table and I use less XP, then I get a useless enchantment, something that's almost useless at least, and it won't be as good. But if I use more XP, I'll get a better enchantment, something that's impactful, that's good, that's worth more, right? Sorry, I had to pull this down because it's actually just pouring out there and it's just striking lightning while I'm trying to record this video. Bro! I've had to move because of the rain and the lightning, and it was really getting inside my room at least, because my window was open and everything. So I've just closed it. You can hear the rain outside, so I'll just continue on what I was saying, right? So Minecraft. So we have the enchantment table, right? Put an item into it, and you get to choose an enchantment based off how much XP you're willing to sacrifice. So So if I use less XP, I will get a pretty useless, not that beneficial of an enchantment onto my item. Whereas if I use more XP, I'll get a better enchantment and something that's a bit more useful, more impactful, and will actually last longer in general. And I'll end up using it more. Now I want you to imagine the amount of effort that you have in a day. That's the amount of XP that you have. I call it effort XP. It's something that you get to use throughout the day depending on how hard a task is or how easy a task is. Right? So there's an easy task. I use less XP, but the outcome will not be as good as enchantment table. But if there's a harder task, I'll use more XP, there's more effort, but the outcome and the feeling after is much better. The dopamine is much better. That is expensive dopamine. And cheap dopamine is where I don't use as much XP because I'm not paying that much effort. If I pay more effort, that's expensive dopamine, but it's worth more, it's better, it's of higher quality. And then you can think about in a real life scenario where it's literally cheap and expensive, where cheap dopamine is like your cheap car and expensive dopamine is like your expensive car. Cheap dopamine is, it would be unreliable, slow, kind of useless, and it will eventually break down. Whereas your expensive car will be fast, reliable, guaranteed, or it won't break down, right? It's reliable in that sense. So that's what I mean, cheap versus expensive dopamine. So understand that concept before we can actually move on. So the difficult tasks will actually take up more of your effort XP. Right? They'll be harder to do, but they require patience and delayed gratification because you got to do the hard work now to eventually reap the benefits later. And that's how you use expensive dopamine, right? Hard work's in front of you, do it now because you're paying more of your efforts to eventually get a bigger return later. And it requires patience and delayed gratification because you can't expect to feel good now, but you can expect to feel good in the future. The longer that you can wait without reaping the benefits of your hard work and without wanting that gratification, the longer you wait, the bigger the reward is at the end because it stacks up. Everything stacks up. And you get to cash out everything at one point rather than cashing out one at a time. When people tell me they don't want to do the hard tasks, I don't blame them, right? Because most of the time, especially just the average person, they're unable to recall or know what it feels like to do the hard work and why it feels good to do the hard work. So there's no incentive for them to actually sit down and, do the hard work and then expect a reward later. Everyone's out here trying to play video games or jacking off or eating junk food. So you only know and you've only been repeatedly told that if you do these things, then I'll feel good, then I'll get dopamine. But you haven't been repeatedly told that if I do the hard work, if I do this difficult task, then I will also feel good, but I'll feel better in the long term. And that's what's worth. Because you don't want to feel good now, you want to feel good later with a bigger payoff. Because this feeling good now doesn't last as long as the feeling good later. And most people don't know what that feels like. They don't know what the temperature of the room's like. They don't know what their body feels like. They don't know what they're seeing when this happens. So they have no incentive to move towards doing the hard work. But there's so much incentive to moving towards the bad habits because you know and it's confirmed that you're going to get dopamine. Even though it's cheap dopamine, you know it's confirmed you're going to get dopamine out of it. I want you to understand that your brain is built for survival, right? Think about this in any context. Your brain is built for survival. So when there's a hard piece of work versus an easy piece of work, and your goal is to get the dopamine at the end, your brain's going to go with the easy path. It's going to want to do the easiest thing to reach the goals that you have. So if the easy path will get you dopamine right now, your brain will see convenience and easiness as the way to go towards it because that's how the brain works. It's to survive. Whereas it'll completely avoid the hard work because it knows it's difficult and it knows it's hard. The idea is to get addicted to working hard. How do you do that? Right? So you have a hard task. If you sit down and get that work done and avoid reaping the benefits, know that for now you won't reap the benefits of the work that you're putting in. And you do the work. And then you eventually know what it feels like to do the hard work, to actually put the effort in, you're going to want to do that again. Because you got the positive reinforcement that if I do this, then I will get this. If you do it again, you do this, you get that. You've now been given an equation that if you put more of this, you're going to get more of that. And then your bar gets higher because you have to put in a bit more effort every single time to get that, but it's better, and you feel better in general. So that's something that you have to deal with, is that, okay, you have a little bit of a higher bar, but that means if I put more effort from here, then I'm going to get more happiness, more dopamine, more serotonin. And then eventually, if you keep doing that over time, you're going to get addicted to work. You're going to get addicted to challenging yourself and feeling good, because you know what it feels like to do the hard work. And once you find out what that feeling is, then you can actually sit down and put more of your effort to eventually get more of that feeling good. And then you can rewire your brain in that sense, so you will feel good to do the hard work. So understand that concept of cheap dopamine versus expensive dopamine. We want to avoid cheap dopamine because it doesn't last as long. It's rusty, it's unreliable. We want to use our efforts, the more efforts we use, to get that expensive dopamine, because it gives us more motivation than cheap dopamine would. Cheap dopamine gives us short-term motivation, whereas expensive dopamine gives us that long-term, hard-working motivation, so that when we get that spike of dopamine, we don't actually crash below our baseline. We are higher because there's motivation to do more work. And that's how you get addicted to working hard. Okay, thank you for listening. All right, go get it.